There's no shortage of personal development programs, courses, books, coaching, workshops. Most people who want to change something in their life have tried at least one and probably more. And for a while, a lot of these programs work. You engage with the process, you apply what you've learned, and something shifts. Your thinking changes, your behavior changes, and of course, your life starts to improve. And then something else happens. The momentum just drops. The consistency fades. Old reactions come back. And what felt like real progress definitely starts to slip. And that's the point when people begin to question everything, the program, the method, and often themselves. But that's the wrong place to look. The issue isn't that the methods don't work. Most of them do. You can see that clearly in the results people get when they apply them. The real question is this: if the methods work, what determines whether the result holds? The answer sits in a very specific moment. You already know what to do. You've got the practice, you've experienced it working, and then the moment comes to do it again, and something small shifts. You decide to do it later. Something else takes priority. You tell yourself you'll come back to it. And then, of course, you don't. That moment might feel insignificant. It passes quickly, but it keeps repeating. And over time, it defines what you actually do. And that's the pattern. It doesn't show up as a big decision. It shows up as a series of small, reasonable shifts in attention. Each one makes sense on its own. Together, they bring you back to the same place you started. You can see this clearly if you follow it over time. Someone starts a practice, applies it properly, and gets a result. Then their engagement loosens. They miss a session, then another, and eventually the whole thing just drops away. The original pattern returns, and the progress just fades. In some situations, it's even more obvious. I've worked with people who experience clear improvements through a process, then stopped at the exact point where those improvements began to stabilize. When they returned, the same results appeared again, and then the same drop-off happened again. The method worked, the pattern determined whether it continued. This is where most approaches fall short. They give you understanding, they give you the techniques, they create momentum, but they don't train you to recognize the moment where your engagement shifts and the pattern takes over. And that's the point that matters. Change starts to hold when awareness becomes something that you actively use. You begin to see that moment as it happens, the hesitation, the delay, the movement of attention away from what you intended to do. And instead of following it, you stay with the process. That's a small shift, but it changes everything. Over time, the practice stops being something that you try to maintain. It becomes part of how you operate. Your responses change, your behavior stabilizes, and then the results hold. So if you tried before and it didn't stick, go back to that moment. Look at what happened just before you stopped, where your attention moved, what replaced the action you intended to take. That's where the pattern is. And that's where the process changes.